Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
What is psychosis? When I was slipping into psychosis, I did a lot of X-posting. I received a lot of help from you guys mentally, which I would like to say thank you for. I'm now out of psychosis, and a lot of anons on here helped me back to reality. I'm left with some slight confusion, though. Are lots of us in a shared psychosis? When I was there were a select few anons who seemed to have exactly the same information as me. There were anons who seemed able to communicate directly with my inner workings to a level that looked psychic. People would post things that corresponded to my thinking so directly, it confused me. So what is psychosis? When I was in the psyche ward, there were two distinct classes of mental patient, the legitimately mentally ill, and then the shared psychosis crowd. I was meeting people who claimed to be ancient Sumerian entities. These were people who seemed like they shouldn't even know what they were talking about, yet they did. I met one woman who told me she was Lilith while she was in psychosis, but when she was out of it, she didn't know who Lilith was. Why are so many of us tapped into the same vein of insanity? How can it be possible?
Oh boy, it's my time to share minor prophecy, apparently. So this is important and I think relevant here for reasons that should become apparent. This year we're going to see a sharp increase in psychosis plus violence of passion or fear, peaking especially in the summer. There will be a spike in seemingly random or irrational acts of violence around the globe on individual levels, or might seem to many like someone just went mad over the course of a week or a few days. But the causes and impulses will be very familiar to anyone that has experience with psychosis and paranoia. The veil has been adjusting and thinning at a relatively rapid rate in terms of human history timescales, and the testing, growth, and crystallization of the human soul in each of our experiences will increase in intensity. It won't culminate all in just this year, but the public conscious awareness of the phenomenon will noticeably increase. It will be difficult to ignore when it lingers in the collective subconscious concern. Some of you already know as much. I don't think I'm solely privy or first to this, nor that this is a message to save the future. I just wish to urge caution, especially for those who are mentally susceptible to conscious and unconscious extremes or know those who are. It happened with my female friend's boyfriend a few days ago. To say he was fine before it happened would be to ignore the circumstances of his spirit and subjective experience. But his mental state took an extreme nosedive in just a few days. He was psychically duressed, and his thoughts were trapped in paranoia, fear of the shadowed faces and voices we receive through each our own lenses. He ended up putting a bullet in a stranger's head in broad daylight, and now I doubt he'll be free of his physical prison, nor the prison his mind is about to create for him anytime soon. I know that many, including some here, will or already have weathered madness and found they like the taste of violence and power it brings, and may continue that path and not be dissuaded. Many may just lose themselves or their lives, especially as the world vibrates more energetically with war, scarcity, economic collapses, and social and personal turmoil, building and cascading as the years go on. This is the way of things, but our feelings and choices towards ourselves as well as others will have much impact in determining the outcome of our experiences.
It's shared because of social media and YouTube and the elite constantly messing with the narrative. That whole Mandela effect is being done by the powers in control and the powers that be. They change definitions, and who's to say they haven't been slowly dripping doubt throughout the years? Your psychosis was brought on by something. Remembering what it was and avoiding it will help. We are the only ones who can advocate for our mental health. I have done horrible shit in my life, mostly because of others telling me it's a good idea. I had to get out of my own way and just stop listening to other people who just liked the energy and meddling. After they said the whole brain chemistry being off balance is bullshit, it really is hard to figure out what is wrong, if anything. Try to get out of your head by stepping away from triggers. I had to move to a small area near a state forest to settle down. I was overwhelmed with the way people are inherently selfish when you get them together. Try to lay flat on your back and see the stars. It helps me. Sometimes just the sound of running water helps. You need to find anchors, Anon. You're going to be okay. Try to take breaks from social media or YouTube. If everyone is crazy, none of us are crazy because it's normal. You have to factor in the bots and how they just want to be seen as one of us, even if it means agreeing with your delusions. I stop in here and try to talk people like you down. I'm glad you're doing better. I wish there was a way to help more of you. I'm older now and wish I could help more.
People like you really helped me through. I appreciate you trying even now, but I'm at a point of stability. That's why I wanted to thank anons like you for everything you did for me. Many of you spotted I was in difficulty and tried to help. Without you guys helping me rationalize, I don't know if I'd have come back round. I am still stuck wondering about a lot of the mysterious elements, but I am in a much better place now. I think you're right about laying down with the stars. That's something I need to do more, because I found myself recently how helpful it was. It was just so crazy how things seemed to correspond to my thought pattern. A voice inside asked me what could give me peace. I said, a white void with black stars. The voice responded, okay, your wish is our command. Go stand outside and look up. I went into the garden, looked up at the white skies and the heavens opened with snow. The snowflakes looked like black stars in a white void. It only lasted 5 minutes, but it brought me great peace. Moments like this confuse me.
You're a human. You can see whatever you want to see if you look long enough. I was bounced from the psych ward to an asylum just for wanting to dream. If you sleep all the time, you must be depressed, they say. When I was awake, I wondered why they sold dreams to me as a kid, that we are all important and we could be anything we wanted. They never mentioned debt or people who have that mob rules mentality and say it's normal. Smell the dirt, go hiking, and breathe fresh air. I don't know what state you're from, but the trails here are wonderful. I sit by the water and watch the fish and wild turkey. Maybe you could get a bird feeder and watch the birds. The squirrels and chipmunk will steal the feed and the birds get pissed at them. You're actually telling yourself that nature is what you crave. Listen to it and have peace. You're winding down off a ramp up. It takes some time, especially if drugs were involved. Just give yourself room to fail and win. Some people go crazy because they're not giving themselves room to fail and win. It has to be one without the other for some people. You are having a moment of clarity and you recognize this. Screen grab this so the next time you're spinning out, you can post this for others to help you back down. I think just owning it and knowing that you are able to understand what happened gives you a good chance. You deserve the sun and moon, it's there for you. I'm glad you're okay. The meds always made me feel worse, so I don't take them. When I see myself slipping, I find nature immediately and listen to the actual world outside, not the cars or the people. I listen to the birds and the wind. It's real medicine.
Drugs weren't involved for me, fortunately or unfortunately. It was a combination of extreme sobriety, fasting, spirituality, and the occult that all mixed together to put me in a really crazy state. An evocation was the thing that tipped me over the edge, so at the moment I'm avoiding the magical and just trying to normalize a bit. I've been getting out in nature more and making new friends, which has been a great help to me as well. I just can't pry my mind fully away from some elements of my psychotic episode. It's like when they let you into the psyche ward, you see a whole other side of life that is normally hidden away. I have screen grabbed your post for future reference, and I will look back to you as and when needed.
They're scars, Anon. They're there to remind you to treat yourself better. I'm guessing you're in your early 20s? I fasted for a week. Your body does funny things when you don't have proper salt and sugar balances. Try chewing peppercorns and focus on the taste and sensation of them. It works for that weed spook when you have a panic attack, or for anything where you start to get uncomfortable. Lay down in the dark and chew some peppercorns. Those Benzodrex inhalers help as well. If you can breathe and taste, you're going to be okay. You're probably subconsciously feeling shame or having difficulty with realignment to the norms. I knew a schizo who got on medicine and didn't feel special anymore, so he stopped taking them and killed his girlfriend. He wasn't cared for properly. He saw his mother get murdered by his father, and they both sat eating dinner with her corpse for a week. The dad was not mentally ill, but he had a few too many bad days and popped. He came over and asked me all sorts of questions that were eerie. I asked him if he needed help if something happened, and he just went back home like nothing happened. I called the police and had them check up on him. The week he killed her, he kept trying to get me to go to his house, and his GF told me not to. Do your friends know any of what happened? Be careful trusting people you don't know really well. There are some people who are just not nice. Remember your anchor points after you find some. Maybe a way to reach out if you need help. I'm here to listen anon. You can tell me all about it if you want. Do you think you're having doubts about what happened actually being true?
I'm in my late 20s, but this started in my early 20s. I'm not fasting anymore because I kind of achieved what I say out to with it. And since I feel that was a part of what propelled me to heights of insanity, I don't really dare go back there for a while. I definitely feel strange readjusting to the norm. It's all very confusing, to be honest. I know I can do it, but I'm still stuck questioning the narrative. I saw things I cannot unsee, and because they happened in a psyche ward, next to no one can possibly believe me fully. And I understand that. So I'm left with a frustratingly isolated view of reality, with very few witnesses. Luckily, the UFOs, which were deemed part of my insanity in the eyes of the National Health Service, I witnessed with a bunch of my friends recently. The National Health Service told me I was hallucinating sky shit. So it was nice to have a moment where everyone got me. My friends know the full story from both my perspective and my sister's on the whole thing. They don't fully understand it, but they believe a lot of what I say. I wouldn't throw my sanity on the line by repeating the shit I do if I wasn't deadly serious about it. I know how crazy it all sounds, but some parts were real. It's just what was real that defies everything I thought before. I'm just left confused and alarmed by the whole thing.
I started to have psychotic breaks in the last few years. Voices in my head were telling me 120 days. 120 days passed. Nothing seemingly happened. I have moments where I am certain that I'm living in some kind of ancestor simulation. I have a daughter who is half black that I don't even get to see, but I feel like I was hired by her at Georgia Tech. Not exactly time travel, but we existed every time, maybe. I'm often convinced that when I tried to off myself a few years back, I actually died, and now I'm in some sort of post-death or catatonic coma hellscape. I often think of ways to escape. It seems like the only way to wake up. But I feel like doing that might be what they are trying to get me to do. Maybe get all of us to do. Isn't it a little weird what the theme song for maybe the most iconic TV show of all time, MASH, is called? 13 Reasons Why, etc. I feel like an hero might be the only way to lose my soul, and that's why they want me to do it. But it is very tempting. Almost like the forbidden apple. Just taste me and wake up. You've been sleeping since the bike accident in 6th grade. The thing I'm ashamed of is, I had a chance to see behind the veil. God, the creator of Sim or Other, asked me if I would really like to see, and I declined, because intuitively, I knew it would mean losing the rest of my mind. The absolute state of me bros, not really sure where to go from here.
You could be insane, you could be saner than most. I think the most important thing is to remain self-aware and ride the wave, trust in the process. In the end, whether you die mad or die happy, you still die.
I can smell psychosis. So basically my roommate this semester moved out and went back to his home in Texas because he became psychotic. Over the course of about 6 months, he started becoming more and more frustrated with his career as a musician, erratic and delusional to the point that the situation climaxed in him. Laughing in his room at night, wearing sunglasses, going on about how everything around us was fabricated and making conspiracies about the school and even about myself. In the months leading up to his psychotic break, I started to notice a foul, chemical-like smell accumulating in his bedroom, which I attributed to him just being messy. We're college students, not unexpected. But since he moved out, some of the smell remains. We had a lot of conflicts before he moved out in which he accused me of being manipulative and would say that he was connecting the dots about me. So I started speculating that maybe it was some sort of primal distrust thing based off of our natural smells. Kind of how smell plays a role in being attracted to a person. However, just today, I was approached by another student who had until this point barely spoken a word with me. Today, however, he seemed erratic, and in the span of about 5 minutes, he went off about government conspiracies and his frustrations in an almost psychotic manner as well. Halfway through that conversation, I started noticing the exact same smell coming from him. Exactly the same as my roommate. Am I insane, or does whatever this condition is have a distinctive smell? Both of these people seem equally frustrated with their careers, and I know that stress can contribute greatly to psychological conditions. Don't know what to think. It was a scary interaction, and the scary familiar smell made it worse. Is this even possible?
In regards to a literal smell, I've been able to smell crazy people before, but I wouldn't describe it as a chemical type scent nearly as much as the scent of fresh blood. As someone who gouged out their fingernails by accident, the smell of blood is something very distinct that I can pick up on. That iron chemical scent. It's like someone put iron and ammonia into a tank and started spraying it around. I've seen crazies talk to each other at the homeless shelter saying that it's the bite and that they were ticks. I wondered for a long time if that meant they were vampires.
Where do I begin? I guess my psychosis began last year, where I had this intense feeling to go outside one night, and upon doing so, there was a cat sitting at my door with 3 eyes staring back at me. Since then, however, I've had very vivid dreams about people who would otherwise be considered dead, but are living in a place where I can only imagine as home. A perfect utopia, where life seems calm, except for a few outbursts of infections which cause a quarantine effect. In this world, I've come to know myself more than I could ever in life, which has opened my mind up into perceiving much more than could be explained using our current reality as a focal point to explain. I have seen beings of light speak to me as well as seen shadow entities. I have seen a giant arm hand on many occasions come out of windows and snatch some of these entities I've seen, but have yet to contact it. But when I first awoke to my higher self, there were these little aliens walking around me while holding my wings, which were white and pure and almost divine, and of pure light up around me, while showing me images on a device as thin as a piece of paper, which showed video. In this they showed me worlds I have not yet seen, and currently they take me places in my dreams which are almost impossible to imagine, and I thank them for it. Psychotic should only be a definition for those in the throes of an actual psychosis, whereas they have become violent and are expressing tendencies of violence towards people around them, as they cannot think clearly or are prone to violence themselves. I am just spiritually awakened, and you said that we came together to create reality itself, and you are right. At the end of existence, we come together and discuss what we should make as a reality, a universe, where we create rules and laws for ourselves and try to prove to ourselves that it's easy to live in these existences and come together at the end of everything.
I also had psychosis, and you described it perfectly. I believe psychosis to be ego overstimulation to the point where we see the interconnections between the mundane and benign to the real mechanization behind the scenes. Ego protects us in a sense to distinguish between the important and unimportant, but in reality our mind has much higher input of data than short-term and long-term memory can fit. Psychosis, I would say, would be just breaking down the old patterns of thought, ego being overstimulated by reality dissolution, trying to fill in the holes of torn facade it called life once before. And you as self being in shock and disassociation and derealization because you had this sort of magnificent and sudden shift in perception of reality. In this state of dissociation and derealization, you see how things really are and what impact every word and their order in the sentence have, how this whole world is being shaped by simple shifts in word order, all while ego is trying to extinguish the fire of incompatibility with past pretense truth. I assume there is also some metaphysical and spiritual aspect to psychosis that I am not aware of as of yet, but I am working on it.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, thank you. There is definitely some spiritual element to it for sure as well. I just think it's mind-blowing how many people can all be in the same place, mentally, at the same time. I feel like there has to be more to it than we are currently aware of.
Anon, you responded to here, oh, of course there is spiritual connection of some kind. First to note is that there have been synchronous scientific inventions at the same time period around the world with people who had no connection to one another. And almost every scientist worth its salt will say, I got my info from somewhere, don't know where. I feel like I was just a conduit, but never actually a person responsible for this. This is why most scientists don't believe in intellectual property. Also, there was a study of some type of monkey in the middle of the ocean near Japan that scientists supposedly fed with sweet potatoes that were dropped in the sand. Monkeys would eat the sandy potatoes and kind of be annoyed with it. Well, not long after, there was another different island with the same monkeys that came to the conclusion that if they washed the potatoes in the sea, that they would not only remove the sand, but also add the salt kick to the potatoes. In the same time, the initial island found out about the technique, similar to how Newton and Leibniz found out about integrals at the same time, unbeknownst to each other's research. You can't see these sorts of connections until you're in the middle of the storm. But that's where it happens, and where you see some sort of higher order meaning and connections.
Sometimes I feel like not taking my medication to go back into psychosis. Felt like I was having a great epiphany every hour about something. Some of them I still believe are true, even though I don't think I'm psychotic at the moment. The only thing I hated is that I legitimately thought my life was in danger every hour, and there were assassins out to get me. But every day was like being in a war zone. Going outside meant that they could have Vietnam-style booby traps using animals, which is why every day I had to wait for the sunlight to shine so I could see any spider webs. I'd have to be aware of sound because I thought there were others using passing cars, etc., to scare snakes into my direction. But I thought up a lot of ways to kill someone naturally using creatures by me being paranoid about it. In the mental ward, a bird actually somehow got into the place. Flew through a tiny door that's got a cover over the top outside, which makes it even harder for a bird to fly in somehow. I thought it was an assassination attempt in that they drugged a bird, dropped it into the mental ward outdoor area, which is housed like a prison with big walls. Then somehow controlled it to fly inside by using whistling, and had given it some kind of biological disease like the plague with rats, so that it would infect me by giving the bird laxatives, so it bombed the place with bird shit. This also being that it was a magpie, one of the only birds that actively attacks people.
Not really paranormal, but some of the experience with psychosis is... First story I have, basically I was experiencing psychosis and I was having wildly paranoid thoughts. I didn't sleep for a day, and took some sleep aid in the form of PIC-related. This caused every part of my head, including my hair, to feel a burning sensation. The pin was like an 8 out of 10, but there was one benefit. My imagination abilities seemed to increase, as I was able to literally see constructs in my head opaquely. First I started by trying to count down from 100. This was in the attempts to go to sleep. I could see the 100 in a yellow neon color. Then 99. I stopped and started constructing sequences of numbers like 3333 or 111, and then progressed with the light being able to create shapes. It then started creating some sort of spherical Dyson star. I then played the beginning of Shrek 2 in my head. This is not a troll. Second story, I hear my subconscious. I can tap into my subconscious. What happens is I operate like the subconscious. I value every variable in my head and work through arguments for certain thoughts. Let's say I wanted to prove I would exist. I would go through with the idea that I don't exist, and I would see if I could prove it to be true. I don't hear my whole subconscious, but I figure out the reasons for why I do things. You'd be surprised how much free will you really have. One time I believe I heard my ID speaking, and all it really was is like a voice shouting out desires. Superego is a lot harder. It's the perfect version of your ego. It's sort of like the God part of you. It operates both internally and externally from the world by matching something important to you to see something in the past. This is called a synchronicity, I believe, and I believe it's the method of communication. through signals, not dialogue. From a psycho.
I didn't buy the whole delusion shit when I was in the middle of it, and fought through panic attacks. At times it felt like my heart was going to explode and I would shake heavier than a raging alcoholic. But I just kept reading on the subject 4 hours a day. I'd get back from work and would read and research book suggestions and just talk about the insane experiences I would have, like extreme premonition on major events and the emerging of my ability to astral projection thanks to meditation tips I got on here. Now I fear nothing and no synchronicity is too insane for me. I met dream invaders and got better at lucid dreaming. I fight every nightmare and fuck them up with visualization. There was only one dream that I vividly remember. I was locked into place by hooded practitioners of magic and it was hard to break out of their circle. When I did, I found myself looking from a distance at them, realizing that these were live people, which made sense to me since Freemasons started approaching me and commenting on my daily experiences. What a boring couple. Text message from an old coworker I didn't speak to for 2 years, as I thought that when I sat down with a boring couple. When I told him I leave my phone unblocked to have my backdoored stalkers give me information on how big their reach is and who outs themselves, 3 strikes you're out, he deleted the message and didn't answer me properly. But in retrospect, these occult people that work in groups or cults are easy to spot. I don't hate anyone for what they did to me. But someone was spreading a lot of disinfo about me which got me on a target list. I dived deep into all of it at the same time, and sometimes it felt like those 3 years of my life contained the experience of 30. I stopped doing drugs when it started and kept my credibility up, even when they tried to make me quit working altogether. Sending a puppet to my work a week after I got a new job was a mistake. He died in a fatal accident. Fast forward 3 years later and it all died down. I only got the ability to feel spiritual presence and mind readers. I stopped meditation and lucid dreaming because it would put me on edge for the rest of the day. All is fine now though, but I know what was real and what was not, because I wrote it all down and can now compare what was theory versus actually happening. People resorting to meds and doctors is like an exit game when you can't take it anymore. Lack of willpower and soiling our drinking water with your contaminated piss. Last thing is when you're being targeted by these forces, live or dead, is that you will seek out these synchronicities by implanted actions. The radio DJ will play a certain song because you are listening. You will take a different route than usual and meet someone you just thought about. The only way to disable them is to rewire the brain and 1. Realize that everything is one big play and be stoic about everything. 2. Willpower is the strongest form of magic, so be strong and make your will endless and limitless.
Disclaimer, I didn't read this whole thread. I was once psychotic. I was delusional as hell. Had the classic symptoms. I was paranoid, thought people were watching my every movement with crystal balls or some other remote viewing method. I thought everything said by anyone was referencing me. The lines between reality and imagination were blurred, and I knew it, but I could scarcely tell the difference between what was real and what was imagined. I sometimes awoke from dreams and pondered if the memories were of real events or just dreamland fantasy. I imagined voices, not sure if I actually heard them, and saw strange patterns. I went to a psychiatrist. My parents arranged it. I was under 18 at the time. I didn't like it. I started to see how fake everything was. The psychiatrist was just another person in the rat race, going to her job to make money like anyone else. My parents were just doing what they thought was best for their child. The drugs they gave me, while I admit they may have had real effects, had weird side effects that I didn't like, blurry vision, shaky hands, etc. As soon as I turned 18, at my next psych appointment, I told her I didn't want to be her patient anymore or take the drugs anymore. I went about my life as I felt an adult should, and I didn't care what anyone thought about me. Now my life is a little unusual. For example, I stay inside my house alone far more than anyone I know. If I didn't have to leave my house for a reason, I'd be a recluse. and just stay shut in all the time. Although I appreciate being able to abstractly interact with humans through the internet, I believe I'd stay sane with enough books to read, movies to watch, or video games to play, or other mental stimulation. I no longer hallucinate, imagine ridiculous scenarios such as being watched by people in my dreams or while awake. I don't think witches are trying to hex me. In short, it's like I grew out of being schizophrenic. I don't get it either.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.